Hey guys, Rick Sayes here. Welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where I hope to provide entertaining conversations with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz to get their stories, tips, strategies, productivity tricks, and ideas that you can apply and take your career business to the next level. I recently caught up with my good friend and longtime outdoor industry exec Mike Wallenfels at the Outdoor Retailer Show. Mike tells us about how Mountain Hardware got started and some of the other interesting startup projects he is involved with. Enjoy. Hey guys, Rick Stays here with another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Today we're speaking with my good buddy Mike Wallenfels. Mike is currently the VP of Sales at Hydro Flask, was one of the founders at Mountain Hardware, and has led brands such as Timbuktu, Sierra Designs, and others. Welcome to the show, Mike.
It's great to be here, Rick. Good to see you.
Yeah, awesome. We're sitting here in the halls of the Marriott at Outdoor Retailer, found a quiet spot, and there's a ton of stuff we can talk about because we've known each other for many, many years. But I thought we'd start with your first exposure to the outdoors. Was as a kid? Did you go backpacking, camping as a family? What was that? What was that like?
So, kid, late 70s, was, reading Yule Gibbons' book on eating, wild plants and things like that. It was something I did as a kid. I tried Boy Scouts. It didn't really work. I got the Cub Scouts, and they didn't do enough stuff as quick as I wanted it to happen. So my dad did a great job of exposing my brother and I to backpacking early on. So backpacking the Adirondacks.
Nice.
Cheap aluminum frame, external frame backpacks and horribly painful boots and terrible, terrible food. But somehow I absolutely fell in love with it.
Awesome.
And also tried with my brother when I was probably in that 16 to 17, like, hey, let's explore rock climbing. So we bought a copy of Basic Rock Craft by Royal Robbins and tried to teach ourselves how to tie bad knots. And
the Adirondacks, there was some scrambling, sketchy rock there.
It was. So climbing on Noonmark in the Adirondacks, Boston, where we had family, Quincy Quarry, and then eventually in the Shawangunk, we'd make trips down there. So I started pretty early backpacking, doing outdoor stuff. Always did. I would spend hours and hours and hours in the woods just as a kid. Yeah. So that extended into just the things that I sort of loved to do. But I always wanted to learn more about rock climbing when I was on the East Coast.
Now, how did you get to the West Coast? I forget that story.
That story is sort of followed my passion. I graduated high school in 81, and I received a $500 scholarship on my graduation day from high school for art. And for art, I was planning on being an art major.
Really?
But the local art council gave me, I did art comps, I did 3D sculpture, did lots of different mediums, and I got a $500 check, and I said, I looked at that $500 check, and I said, I'm going to California. And I took the $500, bought a one-way ticket to San Diego.
Wow.
And my brother was living in San Diego at the time.
So connections.
I had 2 weeks while he was still there. He was going to go to Montana, to Montana State, and I had to get myself a place to live and a place to work.
Wow.
In order to, my plan was to go to college in San Diego, to go to San Diego State.
Yeah. And that's so was your first job there at Stanley Andrews?
Yeah, it was. So that was, I was running out of my $500 pretty quickly, but found a great place to live, with a family that was sort of a family friend, and I got a job at Stanley Andrews, which later was bought by Sport Chalet. Yeah. And Stanley Andrews,
that was the premier shop in San Diego.
It was the premier outdoor shop, fishing, outdoor backpacking, climbing. They were the North Face retailer, and they're very picky who they sold to. Yeah. And I knew how to string tennis rackets. That's actually what got me the job on the floor at 18 years old.
Wow.
And I did backpacking. Played tennis, tournament tennis, and all that. My brother was a pro. He was a teaching pro and played in a lot of tournament tennis, and I sort of followed down that path for a while. But
so full disclosure here, folks, Mike and I were roommates back in the day. So just, some of these stories I may have known and I forgot.
Or we just never went there.
Oh, yeah, that could be too. We were too focused on the outdoor stuff. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So then you were at Stanley Andrews for a handful of years or months before you got to A16?
As any retailer goes in ups and downs, Stanley Andrews was going through ups and downs, and the store I was working in Chula Vista was shutting down. They were reducing the number of doors they had. Yeah. So as they're shutting down, within 6 months of arriving, I go, what do I need to do? Because I had to spend a year working in California to get my residency.
Right.
So I said, what do I do next? I said, well, why don't I go to Yosemite?
Nice.
So I applied to Yosemite Park and Curry Company, and they accepted my application. I went up there and walked up into HR, and they gave me a job working in the laundry in Yosemite and in Yosemite Village. It would be the all-time worst job that when somebody asks the question, what's the worst job you ever had? That one.
I can imagine.
I was in Yosemite.
I can imagine.
But within about a month of being there, I was able to talk myself into getting a job at the Mountain Shop in Curry Village.
Excellent.
Because I'd already worked at retail.
Right. And you had a desire to learn about climbing, love for climbing.
Exactly.
At that point.
And that perfect job. Went from worst job on the planet to best job on the planet.
Nice.
I was in charge of stocking T-shirts and stocking beer.
Hey, that's not bad either.
At that time, and I was only 18. But the Mountain Shop in Curry Village had the best assortment of beer in the valley. So all the international climbers would come there.
Right.
The shop looks nothing like it did before. It was classic with wooden floors and spiral staircase. And
so did you get to see all the big names that came through? And did you
absolutely
did you like piggyback and ask them to take you climbing?
Well, I knew people like Mike Corbett, one of the best big wall climbers, John Backer, number of folks that were there at the time. It was sort of a glory days, 1982 to 1983.
Yeah.
I went back again a couple more summers. I had a guaranteed job back for summers to go back to Yosemite. So
at the climb shop.
Yeah, I actually had a goal of climbing every 5.9 in the valley. Excellent. And so I still have my yellow Yosemite guidebook with every single 5.9 highlighted and marked off. I was able to get up to about 12A at the time. Yeah. I got to know the valley climbs extremely well. Still love Yosemite Valley to death. Yeah. So it got me passionate about retail, got me passionate about the Sierra.
Yeah. And then from there you went to
the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because you probably also got exposed to the industry then, right? Some of the brands that were selling in the shop.
Yeah, there were brands, but not many reps came into the Mountain Shop in Yosemite. Right. The buyer would go out and find the stuff to get there. But I certainly got very intimate with all the equipment that was there.
Yeah.
It was one of the few jobs in Yosemite. It was a union place to work. And Yosemite Mountain Shop was the only place that didn't require union tenure to work there because you had to have experience and know what the equipment was in order to sell it.
Any climbers that had a union card, that's for sure.
So
union? No, we don't do that.
Then I went back to San Diego to go to San Diego State and worked for Sport Chalet.
Okay.
For 2 years, and then I left Sport Chalet, and then I started working at Venture 16 after I finished up with college.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's where we connected.
Yeah.
The early days of the San Diego A16 tribe. Those were fun times.
Yeah.
And then after A16, because you worked your way up through A16. When we were together, you were on the floor. You were a store manager, I believe.
Yep, I was a store manager in San Diego. I helped them put together the rock climbing program in conjunction with Alan Bard and Tom Carter and the Alpine. What was that?
Alpine Expeditions.
Alpine Expeditions.
Yeah.
And put together a bitchin' program to be able to get people to progress from early rock climbing up through mountaineering, being able to basically have people on a path to be able to climb Mount Whitney on the east face. Yeah. Certainly a passion of mine. Map and compass classes, backpacking classes.
Yeah, we did all that stuff.
But then I became buyer for the stores, and so I was buyer for A16 for 4 years. All the hard goods equipment, technical apparel, footwear, accessories, all that stuff was my sort of domain to work with them. And I'd say that was sort of one of the glory periods of Venture 16 in terms of their importance within the industry, their influence, and certainly got me hooked on the business part of it, because being a buyer, you need to know that equation, margin, retail turnover, retail turns, dollars, gross margin. Yeah. Certainly, the folks who were running A16 knew that equation really well. And as a buyer, I probably had more influence over their opportunity to succeed or fail, depending on what I bought. But man, went deep into brands like Patagonia. It was absolutely screaming at the time, and A16 had the only concept shops in the U.S. A pioneer there. Chenard Equipment. Spent a lot of time working with them and actually going up to Ventura to see both Patagonia and Chenard at that time.
Cool.
Guys like Rich Lake and Richard Leversey. Yeah. And a lot of Eagle Creek. Anyway, it was absolute blast being a buyer. That was a perfect thing to do at the time.
Yeah. And you moved out of there to SD, right? Sierra Designs.
Yeah. So I figure I had topped out at retail because my good buddy Jeff O'Keefe was my boss, and I didn't think he was going to go anywhere. And
he was the VP of operations, basically ran it all.
All merchandising and all operations side for A16. And I had ambitions. I was in my 20s. I mean, something's got to happen. So I decided to get on the wholesale side of the business.
Your wife at the time was working at Eagle Creek, right?
Yeah, she was the first customer service person at Eagle Creek after Connie McDonald.
Right.
Who'd been there forever. So I think she was employee number 8.
Connie? She's been there a long time.
So Kate was pretty early on in the Solana Beach days. And
cool.
We got married, decided had to find that next real job, and started talking with folks in the industry that I'd connected with. Jack Gilbert was somebody that I had met previously. Phil Lauren, who's been a mentor of mine, for a good long time as a rep, and knew a lot of brands. He knew Jack Gilbert super well, so he introduced us, and I had concluded that Sierra Designs was a brand that needed a sales manager. They didn't have one.
Okay.
Basically, one of the reps in Northern California was acting as sales manager.
Oh, was that
Bill Sterling?
Bill Sterling.
Yeah, Bill Sterling. And I knew he was doing a terrible job of being a sales manager. Bill, if you listen,
it's a hell of a rep.
Sorry, but great rep.
Yeah.
And I saw there was an opportunity there, and there was. So interviewed for that job, going from buyer, sort of taking that leap from buyer to
natural progression
to national sales manager for a growing brand, and somehow was able to talk my way into it. But it made perfect logic to me.
Makes sense. I mean, I think that's a natural progression for some of you young folks that are listening and want to get in or grow. That's a good transition. Just learn retail, become a buyer, and then that exposes you to all kinds of other opportunities.
Yeah.
Sales management, all those things.
My thought at the time was that as a buyer, I knew really well the reps that did a good job and the reps that didn't do a good job.
Right.
And I knew what I needed. And so I felt that gave me the ability to sort of direct reps and also understand what are the better performing reps and what are the ones and what they could do more. I certainly had to learn a lot about managing reps and what it's like for their life in the field and how to connect with them.
You had a good perspective too of what brands were working well in the store and why. It was part of it was a good sales rep. Part of it was a good brand story and merchandising and things, which has since evolved a ton. But as a buyer, you had all that perspective.
Yeah, understanding your positioning and your place in the market, good, better, best, ultimate, pricing, where that fits in conjunction to other brands within the market. That's a key thing to understand. You can't try to pretend your way out of a position that you're in. You need to have a reason for being. And Sierra Designs had a really good positioning right then, being a sister company actually to North Face and Marmot. Is sort of that good, better, best. But Sierra Designs was a company that was on a real big upward tick with some new technology, but also moderate price points. And it was a blast, but that was a short-lived job, man. Within a year of being there, the announcement was made that the parent company, a company called Odyssey International that owned North Face and Marmot, was going bankrupt, and that all the brands had to be sold off. Wow! So that was like, oh, great, uproot from where I was in California, move up to Northern California, and work for a brand that seemed to be, or a company that seemed to be going down in flames. What was the largest bankruptcy, and actually that district history.
Really? Wow. And then he's like, now what do I do?
What do I do? Well, we had two scenarios. My father-in-law said I should stick with Sierra Designs because I'm going to be a real important asset to them.
Whoever buys them.
Yeah, whoever buys them. But of course, that would be the logical thing to do. But the not as logical thing to do would be to leave Sierra Designs and work along with a group of us that were there at Sierra Designs at the time to create a new brand. because
and some industry veterans, right? I mean, you had
some amazingly talented industry veterans. So Jack Gilbert, who had been with North Face, one of the first ones founding the outdoor retailer trade shows when he worked with the publication. Also, Paul Kramer, who had been innovating product for a super long time. Paige Boucher, who has her own PR outfit here. So a great lineup of all-star cast of folks that sort of launched the Mountain Hardwear brand back in November of 1993. So we decided to cast away and just do a complete startup. We got some funding from some well-intended folks, and we were backed super well. We had a ton of ideas as far as the product we wanted to make, and we felt this was actually an opportunity to make the product that we really wanted to make that we couldn't make under the ownership of North Face and Marmot.
And you you
we
guys really hit the ground running.
Going to do.
I mean,
we hit the ground sprinting. It was the industry was super excited about us coming on board. We had the right message at the right time. We had the right people with the right connections. So startups are not easy, but this is one that we felt that we had the right positioning and path. And
you guys were starting up back in the day before the word startup even was a household verb as it is today. There's startups all over the place. You guys started up when there weren't, everybody wasn't starting up. It was completely out of left field.
And there are a number of brands at the time that actually were also in the early stages that were trying to get going but weren't. There was a brand called Moonstone, a brand called Cloudveil. There was, let's see here, there was Montbell was trying to come in from Japan in the U.S. and still struggling, somewhere that you work, Mr. Says.
That's right.
And there are a lot of reasons why it shouldn't have worked because there are other people that were struggling against the people like Patagonia and North Face, same ones that people have to compete with today. We were competing with back in the day.
There's some well-established Kelty, Patagonia, North Face, right?
The scale is just a whole lot different. But we connected with the retailers. Our message connected with who they were and how they bought. And they can buy based on what they have or what they're seeing in terms of a product or technology. But also, we believe the retailers would buy from a brand and people that they wanted to buy from. And then that can sometimes overwrite some of the things that are, the specifics about a product. They say, I would like to work with these guys. And we had that position. People really rooted for Mountain Hardwear when we first launched in the market. So we're certainly blessed with the attention of the industry. We did make the right decisions in terms of product. We put some amazing stuff out on the market.
You guys did.
We positioned it right. We marketed the brand right. We're truly authentic to what we did. We rode the wave of Mount Everest super well with bringing on unknown climbers like Ed Viesters and Eric Weinmeier. And they went on at the time pretty rock stars in their category. So making the right decisions based on prior experience or having people in your organization, because I was still in my 20s. So the people around me had that experience. They'd been there. They had made the mistakes before. So that helped prevent us from making other mistakes. You had a good blend of
talent, though. You had some, experienced guys like Jack Gilbert, but you had people like yourself, a few other folks that kind of grew into that position and grew Mountain Hardwear into a venerable brand that we know today. Yes, it all grew up. And you were there
16 years. 16 years. So November 93, and I left in 2009, November 1st of 2009.
And the brand at that point had been sold to Columbia, correct?
2003, we sold to Columbia Sportswear. That was planned. We were on a 10-year, basically we had money from our investors, the Cummings family, with a 10-year horizon. So something had to happen. We either had to buy them out as investors or had to find an acquisition partner somewhere. And at the time, there's no such thing as private equity companies. There's no Compass Capital. There's no, no Baird, no bankers that were necessarily hovering around the industry, flooding the industry with cash. So it was basically, who would it be that would be appropriate for us to sort of partner with as a strategic. And Jack had already been approached by Tim Boyle at Columbia, and we immediately went into conversations with them. We were going to talk to a number of people, but we first talked to Columbia about the opportunity.
So they were the first, and they ended up being the
first and only. Yeah, it was sort of a closed offer.
That was clean.
It was smooth. It was clean. Still had some hiccups, but what that did is that exposed me to how the whole transaction part works. Right. Building a real business plan that a publicly traded company will digest. Right. That shareholders will review and analyze. So, I was building the sales plan, distribution plan, product extension elements. I still have that document at my desk. Super proud of it. Just how is Mountain Hardware going to go from $30 million to over $100 million in the 5 years that we had, and we met the plan. We did what we were intended to do when the company was first done. But that was actually a sweaty palm moment when I had to sign on a document that said, here's the plan that we're buying into, and are you going to be the one to make it happen? So at the time I was VP of Sales and Marketing at the transaction, and so I ran all marketing and sales efforts, and we started to expand globally. Then 2 years later, Jeff Gilbert retired, and so I took over as president of Mountain Hardware after that. And I think I was at the
you did that for a while.
Helm as president for 5 years. Yeah.
And then after that, you moved on to a couple spots. You had a nice stint at Timbuktu, and
Well, I started actually thinking at that point is within the industry is there's fun, there's passion, there's also money, which does eventually matter. And what was happening is that there were private equity groups that had interest in the outdoor industry. And one of those was a company called VMG, Velocity Made Good, out of San Francisco. And they were the private equity owners of Timbuktu.
Okay.
And so I was actually approached by them about a potential role. And I thought, well, I've been doing the Mountain Hardware thing for quite a while. I liked the size that Timbuktu was. They were about $20 million, and they needed to grow to about a $40 million brand.
Different category of product.
Different category of product. I was intrigued by getting in the bike industry. Yeah. They were starting to merge and think about getting consumer electronics industry. And I thought that would be a different sort of shake things up. And it was the right size of brand and company that I liked operating in. We're turning into a $100 million brand with large, extensive offices around the world. While that's fantastic to put together, which I worked with Columbia to put together, it was not necessarily the same thing that fueled my soul. So I decided to leave Mountain Hardware. Super hard decision. I built that family and built that group and the brand since the beginning. And said, okay, I'll try something new, which is to work under private equity ownership and try to manage a brand to the point that they need it to, which was revive Timbuktu, get it to a point where someone else would be interested in acquiring the company. So that was sort of a 3-year project that I signed on for. And super fun. Heritage brand within the bike.
You're a cyclist.
I am a cyclist. I got me more passionate about cycling. I'm not necessarily the urban cycling dude, but certainly I knew road cycling really well, and I got into mountain biking for a long time. So Timbuktu was certainly interesting. I actually learned a ton. I got to work with people like Apple Retail. We did 3 floor sets with Apple Retail doing it.
That's a whole other animal, right?
For them. That was a very different animal to work in. We worked with Best Buy. We worked with Amazon with their Kindle program when that first launched. So we went to the Consumer Electronics Show, the bike show. I learned multiple channels rather than just staying in outdoor.
Right, a whole nother learning experience. Yeah, that's excellent. So let's shift gears a little bit and tell us about some of the nonprofit stuff you're working on.
Yeah, early on in my sort of, I'd say, professional industry days under Mountain Hardware, I started thinking early on I should involve myself in the industry as a greater whole. And I saw, the posting basically for OIA Board of Directors is, asking for names. And I put my name in the hat, asked Jack Gilbert if he thought it would be a good idea, and he thought it'd be good to have somebody on the company represent, from Mountain Hardware represent on OIA board. got on the ballot, got elected. I was on the OIA board for 10 years, which is the maximum you can do.
Yeah.
Got involved in government affairs, got involved in putting together Outdoor Industry Foundation, that now puts on the Outsiders Ball and gets involved in great stuff.
Cool.
Renegotiated the contract for this trade show with the people that put it on, basically Emerald Exhibitions. That was a tough thing to do, and that was one of the big feathers in my cap. I went from being a board member to being on the executive committee, then to being chairman of the board for OIA for 2 years, which is a standard term. So people like Steve Barker, Sally McCoy, Gordon Seabury, sort of great group of industry luminaries that got an opportunity to sort of sit in that chair.
Awesome.
And took about 30% of my time. So took some time away from Mountain Hardware for sure, but I had a great team along with me and
another level of learning, different tasks to get things done.
So I got to meet Hank Paulson, Secretary of the Treasury. I got to meet Salazar, the Secretary of the Interior, with Sally Jewell, by the way.
We got to work with Sally Jewell in a different capacity.
Yeah, and then Sally Jewell decided, hey, I like that office. I think I'll go ahead and move in.
Right.
So great experience, great industry. Gave me an opportunity to give back to the industry and sort of have my time with it. But 10 years was a pretty intensive time.
Yeah, it's a long time.
I took a little bit of time off from that, and I took off from nonprofits for a bit. After I left Timbuktu, I went on my own as an independent contractor, consultant, and working with private equity groups when they're sort of researching and trying to develop brands that they have in their portfolio. That were in a similar size that I was comfortable with. I knew how to, find out, do you have the right staff on hand? And that brought me into other industries, pet food, snack food, consumer electronics, as well as outdoor. And that sort of took me a little bit outside of the industry for a bit, which was refreshing, but at the same time sort of pulled me away from the people I was connected to. But at the same time,
did you get any sense looking at some of those outside channels, like, I don't want to go and I don't want to be involved in that? Any of that? Or
I do not want to be in the consumer electronics industry ever again.
Oh boy, I agree with that.
Pet food industry? No, that didn't interest me a whole lot.
Snack food?
Snack food, that's interesting.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
And so I work with some people in that space, and people like Justin from Justin's Nut Butters.
Oh, okay.
And people.
What do you like about that? What about that looks intriguing? Snack foods.
Well, what in the pros in the private equity world who buy brands when they're just emerging and then they sell them later on to a larger strategic group is that you wind up sort of you can work with them on the outside and go, okay, funding's not an issue. We certainly have resources,
right?
But what can we do to try to make this company go to the next level? Typically, the business owners at that point, they're startup folks. They were founders. They don't know the elements that they're going to hit.
They
don't know the roadblocks. They don't know the packaging piece.
Right.
They don't know how to sell through Amazon. They don't know how to sell online.
Right. Yeah, distribution is foreign.
And so private equity groups will bring in outside resources to help the brands that they own to perform on what they need to do. So to some extent, like what we had at Mountain Hardware, where we had some really well experienced folks with us, I could be somebody with some broader scope experience and bring that into some of the companies that I was consulting with. Right. It was fun. Did everything from ski resorts to consumer goods to core outdoor industry things. So what I also did is I still wanted to connect with the industry, so I decided to go on the board of Big City Mountaineers. I did that group for getting inner city kids outdoors to try to do life-changing events based on Outward Bound type programs, and I did that for 2 years.
Awesome.
And then I found I wasn't able to dedicate enough time to it, so I decided to roll.
Did you go on any trips?
I did not get to go on any trips. Well, I did the ones where they're fundraisers. Climb Mount Hood and raise money for what they call Summit for Someone. So I was able to do that, but I wasn't able to get on any of the.
I think we're going to get Jeff Wiedemann here at the show too on the podcast.
Good man. No, super well.
Yeah. And now you're also involved in a nonprofit at Bend. Bend you were telling me about, in Bend, where you live now, correct?
Yeah. So Bend is turning into quite an incubator hub for the industry.
Interesting.
Outside Magazine just put it in as the #1 outdoor city in the U.S., top 25 places to live. For outdoor industry related, there's about 35 companies, small startups and related associated brands within Bend, Oregon. Now it's a hub for active outdoor people.
Yeah,
it's got a river run, a major river running right through it with the Deschutes.
Yeah.
I'm staring at the Cascade Mountains at the Sisters every day out of my office.
Nice.
I can be at Mount Bachelor in 20 to 25 minutes. Yeah. Door to door, amazing fishing, amazing rafting. I just did the Rogue River a few weeks ago. So resources there are just amazing, but it also has enough infrastructure where you have things like office space and warehousing and consultants and high-speed internet.
Which we lack in Bishop a little bit.
That Bend has, and also Bend has funding.
Oh, right.
There are quite a few people that have moved to Bend. And like I just went to a neighborhood party, and the person who put on the party was a former global VP of sales at Nike.
Wow.
And a number of people there that are sort of retired industry folks. There's people that ran operations at Columbia Sportswear, people that, whether it's Columbia, Nike, Adidas, as well as tech companies that
some of the brewery
have moved there, lots of big major breweries. So they're actually people with enough deep pockets to be able to want to play around in and sort of cultivate some things that are new.
That's cool.
There's actually a organization there is called BOW, the Bend Outdoor Works, and that's an incubator for the outdoor industry.
Awesome.
They put on their own Pitch Fest event that's called Venture Out that happens in October. Probably about 250 people attend. There's about 6 companies that pitch.
They hold it in Bend?
Yep, they hold it in Bend in a big old-time theater.
Cool.
And we gave out $150,000 in funding to startups that are all outdoor gear or apparel concepts, either early stage or they just have an idea, or growth stage where they're maybe got their first $200,000 in sales, but they need money to be able to go to the next step.
Some of the folks here in the Venture Out Hall here, any brands?
There would be, let's hear who would be here. Actually, Picky Bar. Somebody in town that went through the BOW process. There's
and we'll put links to all these brands we've named. And all these groups we've named in the show notes.
They're not here for the summer show, but they would be for winter. They basically make bamboo and carbon laminated backcountry snowboards and skis, and they hand make them in Bend.
Very cool.
And a little startup group that's there, and Bounce energy balls. Those are based in Bend.
Nice.
That
sounds very awesome.
It's been fun. So I get to work with some of that incubator stuff. I work with an angel investment group in Bend called Cascade Angels.
Must be super fun, huh?
It is. It's fun doing due diligence on startups, hearing the pitches, understanding what's going to happen or not. It's gotten me involved in a website that's called Outdoor Project, based out of Portland, that Cascade Angels invested in. I became on the board of directors for them, and so it's a user content driven website for people to do outdoor activities. Could be if you want to climb Mount Hood, you want to find a good campground in Hood River. Do you want to know where mountain bike trails are in Asheville? People that are passionate users in each of those areas post where to go, post the pictures, give the inside scoop.
The beta, the local beta. Everybody needs the local beta.
And supply great content, great pictures. They edit it, they cultivate it really well, and they've created a national network for those guys. So it's a neat thing. It's been around 3 years. It's really a neat startup. They have more unique users every month than Backpacker or Outside Magazine do. Last month they had 1.2 million unique visitors.
That's good to hear that people are getting out and you taking advantage of that. I mean, sometimes we wonder that, right? As the people that make the gear and sell the gear and do all the other things, are people really out using this? It's nice to hear that
there's stories, but yes, people are getting out there.
So let's see. Tell us about what's your perspective on the future of the outdoor industry? I mean, we both kind of grew up in it. We weren't, the founding father era, but a little bit after that. Where do you think we're going?
I'd say one word: consolidation.
Consolidation is consolidation of the day.
Just watching consolidation at retail. That's probably the place where the consumer interacts with the retailer and the retailer with the gear. That path is not is not as healthy as it was before.
Yeah.
And
not as healthy and not as black and white. I mean, it's
not. It's very blurred about what is specialty and what is the role of specialty in terms of relationship with a brand and relationship with the consumer.
And what is a dealer? I mean, there's online, there's offline, there's guys selling through Amazon FBA. There's this network that's fragmented like never before.
Yeah, let's just call it changing and going with the flow. So it's hard for some retailers to adapt and adopt. And adapting would be, what do I need to do differently to try to perform in this environment, or what do I do adopt, or what do I need to do? What can I add to what I do in order to try to fit into what that new mold is?
Yeah.
There's certainly retailers that I see resisting that change, that aren't adapting. They just try to pretend that Amazon's going to go away.
Yeah.
We could try, but it probably won't.
I don't think so.
They might try to pretend that the large national retailers like the REIs and the Dick's Sporting Goods and the such will somehow go away, but they won't.
A couple of them went. Maybe they're all going to go. I don't think so.
Yeah, but that's consolidation thinning of the herd is happening a little bit. Gander and Sports Authority. And actually, I think those are going to sort of like thinning the herd, just like in that analogy. It's going to relieve some of the pressure and open up opportunity for the ones that are still there and able to survive better. We're over retailed. We're so over retailed, and now most brands are selling most of those retailers. So we're also over distributed. So it's hard to find that unique and new thing. So there are neat and new and fun and exciting things, especially where I work with people that are in incubators, new ideas coming out. And retailers just have to be so nimble. You can't count on what you sold this year is going to sell again next year. And trying to adopt and find those new things that are unfound. And if you can be that specialty retailer to try to navigate your consumers to whatever that new discovery is, maybe it's hammocks, or maybe it's rumple blankets, or maybe it's
and it might be a new category that you sell this season, and maybe you don't sell the next season. Maybe it's a one and done category. No longer there are the days where once you get in your category, then you just add brands to that category and it lives in your store forever. It could be these categories shift.
So the game moves faster. For all those retailers that sit back and say, I don't need to go to the show, it doesn't do anything for me. They're not doing themselves a service as far as trying to find those new nuggets of newness. If you just rely on your same reps coming in the same door with the same brands year over year, you're gonna miss something. You're gonna miss it, or you either miss a trend or miss an opportunity to be offering differentiation. Now, don't walk away from the things that bring home the bread. I did that sometimes as a retailer, and I thought, I don't need North Face Denali jacket. Everyone sells it. I'll do just fine. No, I needed to sell the Denali jacket.
You still have to have the milk in the refrigerator cooler.
You do, but you need to add those things that sort of make it unique and special. And that's been the same ever since I was in especially retail in the 80s. That still says it today. It's just I think you have to do things a little bit faster. Identifying how the internet and how omni-channel shopping can fit into your retail store's needs, and how you can transition your retailer into that. So,
and you have to be operationally on your game these days too, right? I mean, there's no room for slack. You've got to be able to, have your store looking good and get your product in the back door and out the front door quicker than ever before.
Well, if there's anything I really learned from looking at the industry from the eyes of a private equity group or people that have been really successful in the industry as far as having the right business acumen or business equation, retail's a tough equation. And the margin for error at retail is within, as stated in the reports that this industry puts out, within 2 to 5 points.
Wow.
And that can be, I mean, if the net for most of the mid-sized stores in this industry, if they're lucky to net 4 to 5 points at the end of the year, but they have a year that's 4 to 5 points off, well, then the profitability is gone. If you don't pay your bills on time, you miss out on preseason discounts, that can be your store's entire profitability right there. So if operationally you can't figure that out, if operationally you miss sales, you don't have the right amount of inventory at the right time, or heaven forbid you have too much inventory and you can't pay for it because the cash flow doesn't make it. You got to pay attention to those equations, and you got to be on that on that bandwagon of how to work best with your brands. And I'm not sure that many of the retailers, I think the GOA retailers are an exception. They know the fine line. They know the things that are important. They know that discounts and paying bills are critically important to being a solid retailer. And I think that's why that organization is doing so well, and the retailers that are in the organization have so much influence. So,
and GOA, for those of you that might not know, is the Grassroots Alliance. It's a group of really top-notch retailers in the outdoor biz. They all have they cross their T's and dot their I's like nobody else. Any suggestions or advice for people wanting to get in the outdoor biz, or someone at the 30, 25-year-old age in the biz wants to grow their career, be the next Mike Wallenfels? Any?
I would follow your passion. Yeah. That's a really overworked quote, but for me, that was what I did. And there's an opportunity to follow your passion. It's just probably not going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. So patience and perseverance, and
still takes hard work.
And it does take hard work. And sometimes this generation, and my daughter's one of that generation, and she's now in the industry and found her place.
Oh, and cool. I did not know
she'll be here at the retailer show for the first time. Do you know the Cairn? The website, the Cairn? She's marketing guru at the Cairn. So my daughter's in charge of all social media, all vendor marketing, and photo shoots. That's great. Product photography.
Sweet.
Just general content. She kind of says, I do it all, but I know there's a couple other people there at the office. But that's an example of a startup that got funding and coaching through the incubator in Bend.
We're looking to get those guys on the podcast.
And then Rob Little, a very good friend of mine. Their office is right next to mine.
Oh, sweet.
So what's super fun is that my 23-year-old daughter is working in the industry right next door to me.
Are you riding to work
in
together?
Bend. No, well, she lives on her own now. She's emancipated. Got her own place, has roommates, her own car, her own cell phone. Oh my God, it's just amazing.
That's awesome.
But for somebody like her, she's understanding how to work hard. She's got to work really hard at it and earn her position, but also look for opportunities. Right, you have to always be looking for what's that opportunity that stretches me a bit, and get an opportunity to coach her through the things she needs to do to stretch, and she's stretching into her role really well. So I think anybody in that age, look for those opportunities, find those holes, work those extra hours, get that extra recognition for the stuff that you're doing, and you have the opportunity to put that energy into it now, and you can accelerate into doing something. So you might do something you think is below your level, like me, working in the laundry in Yosemite, maybe below my level.
Well, everybody that's been on the podcast, we've all started at the bottom. I mean, whether you're a kid on the retail floor, working in the laundry, whatever it is. And here we are all these years later. We stuck with it, followed our passions, and
there are some really good examples. I think Rob Little is one of them at the Cairn, where, he had an idea, went to school, got his graduate degree, got this concept for the subscription box, found the way to get the funding, super smart, super sharp, able to, find that niche within the industry and get something started and create his own. Now he's got almost 20 people working with him there at the Cairn. A couple levels of funding that he's done. Cool. Got a great following, a great business concept. So whether it's doing a startup or starting with a startup, or working with a large established company, getting that on your resume, getting a place that people understand and respect and go, wow, that could apply to what we're doing. You got to get that first foot in the door. You're not going to land that dream job right away. So you got to work your way into it.
You're not going out of school to VP of sales. It doesn't happen. And what outdoor activities do you still participate in? Still bike?
Let's see. I road bike. I don't mountain bike as much. I should be, but just not doing that at the moment. But passionately into the sport for a number of years. So a lot of road biking right now. Backpacking. I do a backpack in the Cascade range. I just love exploring those mountains.
Cool.
I like getting to the top of stuff. So getting to the top of Broken Top or South Sister, or 2 years ago, I went to the top of Mount Adams. So I still enjoy doing that a lot. We did a self-guided trip on the Rogue River a few weeks ago.
Nice.
Blasted through that thing in 2 days.
Wow, really?
Which was, I got blisters and I was really normally 4 before. Yeah. We did 22 miles a day average.
High water.
It was high water. It was really high water. It was like record high water.
Yeah,
so
you can go faster high water.
Do it pretty well. But that's because we blew down our permit. We thought the permit was going to start on day X, but it started day X minus 1. So we had 1 day shorter to run it.
Oh, wow.
So did that. I've been getting into kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding. We're right at the Deschutes River. So,
there you go.
Man, getting on that river and enjoying how to throw. I haven't figured out how to throw a fly and get a fish to hit it on the Deschutes yet. But this coming fall, when the steelhead season comes up,
go down and see John and Amy Hazel at Deschutes Angler. They'll let you figure that out. They're good at that.
Gotta find me a guide, or Rick says you gotta come up to Bend sometime.
I don't have that steelhead thing down yet either. I've never caught a steelhead. I've done it many times, but it's still on my list.
I've done it guided. I haven't done it self-guided yet.
Yeah. Well, I'll come up. We'll figure it out. Any favorite books that you've read, or do you gift books? Do you gift music?
There are books that sort of influenced me a lot. One that sort of came to mind when you said the question is "Men to Match My Mountains" by Ambrose. I just love that. Hearing the story of the fortitude that the early mountain men had in order to cross the West, and how they guided people across it. And I'm like, you think you're going through hardships, just imagine what these people do. And you think about, oh my God, this piece of gear, this jacket unraveled on me. It's like
my zipper broke.
Yeah, these people live with a lot of different things. Yeah. So to me, that shows how to overcome adversity, overcome challenge, and just the tenacity that the mountain men had back in those days of settling the West. I love the book Good to Great. In order to understand what brands need to do.
Right.
So there are a number of business books I read, but I'm still very much of a play by the standard rules that make sense of treating people right, build the right product that people are going to understand, and understanding what your positioning is. So your market and your brand are everything, and understanding who you are and where you need to be within that matrix is super important.
Support that. We'll put links to those in the show notes as well. What's your best outdoor gear purchase under $100? Retail, not pro deal.
Okay, sir. Retail. What do things retail for? Can't really
come on,
any more these days.
For those of you that are maybe not in the industry, those of us in the industry are fortunate enough to get some pro deal and pay a little less than retail, but we still buy a lot of retail.
You know what? Under $100, what I am absolutely blown away by, that I think is a game changer. No matter how they're not silly, they're just amazing, is Lucy lights.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So
I have one in the back of my
tiny
truck.
lithium battery, solar powered, super lightweight, cast off so much light. I have them everywhere.
That's a good one.
Like, oh my God, they're only $25. Right. I'm going to buy 10 of them.
Right.
And I have them in my RV. I have them in, we have a yurt on our property in Oregon.
Yeah.
Got them there. I got them in my backpacking equipment.
They're way better than the RV light. I have one in the back of my camper shell, and it's way better than the light on the back of my shell.
So they're just everywhere. Just blow it up and they're ready to go.
That's good. I like that.
I love those things.
We'll link to that too. Do you have any favorite apps or other podcasts or tools you use on the job? Productivity things?
I love integrating technology into my workday. Certainly we're now Office 365 practitioners. So Outlook integrated into document storage on the cloud, integrated into task management. And we just have, being with a new company like Hydro Flask, we've been able to sort of establish those as protocols for everyone. So we use an online system for group project management called Basecamp, which I think is just badass. It's just amazing. So multiple people getting on, signing tasks.
We're about to get harassed by Jeff O'Keefe as he walks by
getting
here.
Things organized.
He's ignoring us.
And I use Evernote.
Oh, I love Evernote.
Just for,
I use that a ton.
Keeping track of things I need to do, notes on stuff, being able to keep it and be able to just email it or archive it or where it's going to go. So I live by Evernote, live by Basecamp, and then sort of that Office 365 suite of apps.
Right. Cool.
It's so fun to see how it can all integrate into one another. And
this is amazing. Back in the day, I remember we didn't have email back in the day. Now it's all integrated. You can communicate in
How old are you,
seconds. I'm a youngster. Anything else you want to tell our audience or ask of our audience?
This has been, I'm reflecting on Salt Lake City because this is the last show for the trade show here. I remember the show moving from Reno to Salt Lake. That was about the time the Mountain Hardware was starting. And from negotiating and being here and, it's sort of, mixed feelings about leaving Salt Lake City, but I think Denver's going to offer some great and amazing things. But I think it's also giving us, just like Outdoor Retail did a 35-year retrospective on the show, because it's the 35th year anniversary of this show. Super vibrant show. There's so many shows that have gone down in flames.
Right.
Super vibrant pool of people. So the thing to remember is that within the industry, don't burn bridges. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you work for today, who you might have an opportunity to need to network with or even work for later on. And I know a lot of people in the industry over that time maintain good relationships, do what you promised you're going to do, follow through on what you can. But if you can't, just let people know that and keep that network alive. And build it first, and then
it's a huge tribe. We're a huge tribe. We've been doing a lot of these things together for years, and that's what makes it so great. And how can people find you? Facebook, LinkedIn?
Let's see here. Yeah, all that stuff. So, Mike Wallenfels on Facebook, LinkedIn, Mike Wallenfels. I keep pretty big content there. Actually have about 4,000 people I'm connected to on LinkedIn. So if you want to find a network of people that are within various industries I've connected with, try to see what my connections are.
Awesome.
I have a website, and when I was doing consulting, Outdoor Pursuits Consulting, I did that. So outdoorpursuitsconsulting.com. I haven't updated it forever, ever since I went to Hydro Flask 2 years ago. But I still do engage with some advising and consulting for some people outside of that.
Awesome. We'll put links to all that in the show notes and all the other stuff we talked. Thanks, Mike. It's been great.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
We'll have a good show, and I'm sure I'll see you in the halls.
All right. See you, my friend.
All right, man. Have a good one. Bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mike Wallenfels. You can find Mike on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's Mike, Wallenfels. He also has a personal website, outdoorpursuitsconsulting.com. And you can find links to all the info we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 023. I appreciate the support and feedback. Please be sure and share your favorite episodes on the socials. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher, or go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Outdoor Biz Podcast, Twitter at Rick_Saez, that's S-A-E-Z, and my email is rick@theoutdoorbizpodcast.com. Thanks for listening and all the support, and a huge shout out to all my guests, and until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.